The sky above the distant planet was dark and heavy with storm clouds. Lightning cracked across the horizon, and the wind howled like an angry beast. Amid this chaos, a small human spaceship tumbled helplessly, its engines failing, sparks flying from broken panels. Inside, the crew had already abandoned ship, escaping in pods while the tiny newborn cried alone in the life support capsule. The baby's cries were weak and desperate, echoing against the cold metal walls. Time was slipping away. The spaceship's hull groaned and cracked under the pressure, and the life support system flickered. If no one came soon, the child would not survive. Far above the storm, dragons soared through the dark skies. White scales shimmered faintly in the dim lightning, and eyes glowed with intelligence and curiosity. Among them, the elder dragon, Arvin, flew with purpose, wings cutting through the turbulent air. His sharp eyes caught the small flash of the falling spaceship. Something about it felt different. A strange, almost magical pull tugged at him. It was not ordinary. He had seen many crashes, but this one carried a life force that drew him in. Arvin roared, a deep and commanding sound that echoed across the clouds. The younger dragons flanked him, sensing urgency. They descended toward the crash, diving through rain and wind with unmatched speed. When they reached the site, the spaceship had already hit the ground with a harsh crash, spinning and smoking. Arvin landed near the wreckage, claws digging into the mud, and peered at the tiny capsule. The newborn inside stared up with wide, fearful eyes. The other dragons circled overhead, watching the storm, but Arvin focused only on the fragile human. He carefully lifted the capsule with his claws, being gentle despite his immense strength. The baby cried again, tiny arms waving helplessly. Arvin's deep, rumbling voice softened. "Do not fear, little one. You are safe now." The other dragons landed beside him, forming a protective circle as lightning struck around them. The storm roared, but no harm could reach the baby under the dragon's watch. The dragons carried the newborn to their nest, high on a mountain cliff above the storm. The nest was enormous, made of stones, branches, and magical threads of wind that the dragons wove together. Inside, the baby's cries began to fade as warmth and safety surrounded him. Arvin lowered the capsule onto soft layers of moss and feathers, and the other dragons watched with curiosity. They had never seen a human child up close, especially one so small and fragile. Arvin gently opened the capsule and lifted the baby into his massive claws. He examined the child, feeling the warmth of life, the rapid beating of a small heart, and the sharpness of a young mind, even in such a tiny body. The other dragons leaned closer, intrigued. Arvin turned to them. "This child is not like the others. There is a spark here. A light that could grow strong. We must protect it. We must raise it among us." The dragons agreed, circling the nest with low, protective growls. The storm continued outside, but within the nest, there was a calm, almost magical silence. Arvin looked down at the newborn and spoke softly, naming him for the first time. "You shall be called Kale. You are one of us now, little one." Kale blinked up at Arvin with wide, curious eyes, sensing the safety and care in the dragon's presence. Though he could not yet speak, he felt the warmth, the protection, and the promise of a future. Days passed and the storm finally cleared. The dragons stayed close to Kale, learning how to care for him. They fed him with special nutrient mixtures they could gather from the clouds and plants, and Arvin would sing soft, melodic tones that soothed the baby. Kale began to grow stronger, his cries turning into giggles and coos. The dragons were amazed at how quickly he adapted to their world. He was small and fragile, yet his mind was sharp and he showed curiosity beyond his years. As Kale grew, he began to notice the dragon's abilities. He watched in awe as they flew through the storm, their wings cutting the wind with grace and power. He listened to the strange, melodic language they spoke, full of clicks, roars, and whistles. Though he could not yet speak it, he began to understand. When a young dragon nudged him playfully, he laughed, a sound that echoed across the cliff, warm and bright against the cold mountain air. The dragons responded with gentle nudges and purrs, as if encouraging him to explore and learn. Arvin knew that Kale was special. More than just a human raised by dragons, he could bridge worlds in ways the elder dragon could not yet imagine. Kale's mind was quick to learn, his heart brave, and his spirit unbreakable. He asked questions in his own way, pointing at stars, looking toward distant lands, and showing a desire to understand everything around him. Arvin would answer in clicks and roars, and Kale would respond with babbles, gradually forming words and thoughts that the dragons could comprehend. The bond between Kale and the dragons grew stronger each day. The younger dragons played with him, teaching him courage and patience, while Arvin taught him wisdom and respect for all life. Though Kale was still small, he showed signs of a bright future. Even in the first days of his life, the dragon sensed that he would not just survive, he would thrive and perhaps one day change the galaxy itself. One night, under the stars, Arvin sat with Kale in his claws, looking at the distant galaxies that stretched endlessly across the sky. The baby's eyes reflected the twinkling stars, full of wonder. Arvin whispered, "The universe is vast, Kale. One day you will see it all and perhaps you will protect it in ways we cannot. For now, sleep. You are safe. You are loved. And you are one of us." Kale's small hands reached out, touching the dragon's scales, feeling warmth and security unlike anything in his short life. The storm was gone, the spaceship destroyed, and the world below was quiet. Above, in the dragon's nest, a tiny human child slept peacefully for the first time, unaware of the dangers he had escaped and the incredible life that awaited him. The dragons kept watch, their eyes glowing softly in the dark, knowing that this small life, fragile and human, held the seeds of something extraordinary. The first chapter of Kale's journey had begun, and already the galaxy would never be the same. Kale's first memory was the sound of wind. It moved through the dragon cliffs like a living spirit, singing through the stones and brushing softly across his skin. He grew up hearing dragon voices echo across the mountains, deep and powerful, full of wisdom and strength. From the moment he learned to crawl, dragons watched over him closely, never letting him wander too far. By the time he could walk, Kale already understood much of the dragon's movements. He watched how they stretched their wings before flying, how they listened to the wind before leaping off the cliffs, and how they spoke to one another through sounds he could not yet copy. Arvin, the elder dragon, kept a close eye on him. The other dragons treated Kale like a small, strange hatchling who needed protection. Kale loved their warmth, their rumbling voices and their gentle nudges. They were his family and he trusted them with all his heart. Every morning, Kale would stand at the edge of the cliff, staring at the sky where dragons soared freely. He dreamed of flying with them though he knew he did not have wings. Still, the desire burned inside him. Arvin saw this and decided it was time for Kale to start learning the dragon ways. One day, Arvin placed a small device beside Kale. It was a simple anti-gravity harness made by dragons long ago, designed for creatures without wings. Arvin nudged it toward the boy. "This will help you understand the sky," he said in a deep rumble. Kale's eyes widened with excitement. The other dragons gathered, curious to see if the human child could learn something so unusual. It took Kale several attempts to strap it on correctly. His small hands fumbled with the clasps, but Arvin guided him with gentle taps of his claws. When Kale finally switched it on, he felt his body grow lighter. His feet lifted off the ground just a little, making him gasp. The dragons roared in approval and Kale laughed, a bright sound that echoed through the mountains. Arvin slowly led him to the cliff's edge. Kale trembled with fear and excitement. The wind pushed at his face and the drop below seemed endless. But he trusted Arvin. "Jump," the dragon said softly. "The sky will not hurt you." Kale took a deep breath and stepped forward. For a moment he fell. The wind roared in his ears and his heart pounded. But then the harness activated fully, lifting him, holding him steady in the air. He hovered awkwardly, arms flailing as the younger dragons flew around him in playful loops. They nudged him gently, helping him balance. Slowly, Kale began to control his movements. He tilted his body and the harness responded. He moved forward, then upward, and soon he was gliding beside the dragons. The feeling was magical. The sky no longer seemed far away. It felt like home. Kale trained every day, learning how to ride the wind, how to sense storms, and how to glide without fear. He listened closely when dragons explained the patterns of clouds, the shifts of air, and the hidden dangers in the sky. Even though he was human, he learned faster than many dragon hatchlings. His mind was sharp and his determination was strong. The dragons admired his courage. When a storm rolled in one afternoon, the winds became rough and wild. Most young dragons stayed inside the caves, but Kale stepped out, determined to learn. The dragons hesitated, unsure if they should allow it. But Arvin nodded proudly. "Let him try," he said. "He must understand the sky in all its moods." The wind nearly knocked Kale over, but he held his ground. He activated the harness and let the storm lift him. Lightning flashed in the distance, rumbling through his bones. The wind twisted unpredictably, but Kale remembered Arvin's lessons. He leaned when the wind pushed. He relaxed when it calmed. And slowly he found balance. When he returned to the cave, soaked and shivering, the dragons welcomed him with warm breaths and proud roars. Kale also learned their language little by little. He listened to every sound they made and tried to copy them. At first it sounded like broken roars and clumsy clicks, but the dragons encouraged him. With time he learned to understand the deeper meanings behind their voices. Their language was more than sounds, it was emotion, rhythm, and breath. When Kale spoke his first clear dragon word, the whole clan cheered. As the seasons passed, Kale grew stronger. His legs became firm from climbing cliffs. His hands became steady from holding onto dragon scales. His eyes grew sharp from watching the sky every day. The dragons knew he was no ordinary human child. There was something special about him, something powerful and bright. Even Arvin, who had lived for centuries, felt it. One evening, Kale sat beside Arvin at the cliff edge. The sky was tinted orange and gold as the sun set. Kale pointed toward the stars beginning to appear. "What lies out there?" he asked softly. Arvin looked at the horizon with wise, glowing eyes. "Many worlds," he answered. "Some kind, some not. Houses of humans, dragons, and creatures you have never seen." Kale's gaze remained fixed on the stars. "Will I ever go there?" Arvin lowered his head gently beside him. "Yes," he said. "You were not born for just this mountain. The stars will call you one day. And when they do, you must be ready." Kale felt a spark inside him like the first flicker of destiny. He did not know what waited for him, but he knew he wanted to see those distant worlds. The dragons continued to teach him everything they knew: wisdom, courage, balance, respect. Kale learned not only how to fly but how to think like a dragon. He learned that the sky was not just air and clouds, but a path that connected all worlds. By the time he reached his early youth, Kale was no longer a helpless baby rescued from a broken ship. He was a fearless climber, a confident sky glider, and a skilled listener of dragon lore. He felt proud of who he was, but he also felt a growing curiosity. He wondered about humans, the species he belonged to but had never met. Some nights, he would sit alone on the cliff, staring at the stars that seemed to whisper his name. He could feel something changing, something moving in the galaxy. He did not yet know that danger was coming. He did not know that soon both dragons and humans would need him. For now, he simply grew stronger among the Sky Lords, preparing for a future he could not yet imagine. The first sign of danger came on a quiet night, when the sky was unusually clear and the stars looked sharper than ever. Kale sat on the cliff, watching the horizon like he always did, but this time something felt wrong. The air was too still. The wind did not sing. Even the dragons were restless, shifting uneasily inside their caves. Arvin stepped out and looked up, eyes glowing faintly. He could sense something distant, something cold, something moving across the void. Kale felt it too. A strange hum vibrated in the air, too soft for normal ears but sharp enough for someone who had grown up among dragons. He stood up and turned toward the sky. A faint flicker appeared among the stars, then another and another. At first it looked like harmless lights. But the lights grew larger. They were moving fast. Too fast. Arvin let out a low growl. "They are not stars," he said. "Something is coming." Kale's heart tightened. He watched as the lights grew closer until they formed the shape of ships, sharp, dark, and unfriendly. The ships flew in a silent pattern, spreading across the sky like a dark net. The dragons stepped out of their caves, wings tense, bodies ready. They could feel the threat even before the ships reached the atmosphere. Kale asked quietly, "Who are they?" Arvin shook his massive head. "Not friends. Not travelers. These ones take, never give. They have visited worlds before, leaving nothing alive." Kale stared at the approaching ships. Fear rose inside him, but so did something else: determination. He could not let danger reach his dragon family. He could not let his home fall. The alien ships finally entered the planet's sky. Engines glowed with harsh blue light, and metal wings cut through the clouds like blades. They made no sound, but their presence pressed heavy on the land below. The dragons reacted instantly. With powerful roars they took to the sky, forming a wide defensive circle. Lightning flashed behind them, making their white scales shine brightly. But the aliens were not afraid. Instead, they released small, fast drones that shot forward like black arrows. The drones fired beams of light that cut through stone and trees. Explosions echoed through the cliffs. Kale ducked behind a rock as debris fell around him. Arvin roared for Kale to stay low. But Kale did not stay still. He knew he could not fight like a dragon. He had no claws, no wings, no fire. But he had something else: his mind. His quick thinking. His understanding of both dragon ways and human ideas. He ran into the caves and grabbed the simple tools he had built over the years: small energy nets, gliders, and signal stones. He had made them out of curiosity, but now they were his only weapons. The dragons fought bravely, but the alien drones were fast and unpredictable. They moved in strange patterns that made it hard for even expert dragons to strike them. Arvin tried to catch one with his claws, but it swerved at the last second, firing a beam that burned the tip of his wing. He roared in pain but kept fighting. Kale knew he had to help. He struggled up the cliff again and watched the movement of the drones. They were fast, but they followed a pattern, a small pause before they shot forward again. Kale had noticed such patterns while studying birds and storms. He quickly set 3 energy nets along the cliff ledge and waited for the right moment. When a drone passed by, Kale counted the rhythm. 1, 2, pause. On the pause, he threw the net with all his strength. The net shot out, glowing, and wrapped around the drone. The machine sparked and crashed to the ground. A nearby dragon saw this and roared proudly. Kale wasted no time. He set more traps, timing each one with careful precision. One by one, drones began to fall. The dragons quickly understood his strategy and began driving the drones toward the ledges where Kale had placed the nets. Working together, they brought down many of the attackers. But then a larger alien ship descended, far darker and more dangerous than the others. It hovered above the cliff, glowing with a strange light that made the air tremble. A powerful beam shot downward, knocking several dragons from the sky. Kale's heart froze as he saw Arvin struggle to stay airborne. Kale activated his anti-gravity harness and soared upward. He pushed himself forward with all the strength he had, even though the wind from the alien engines was harsh and violent. He flew beside Arvin, helping steady him. Arvin looked at Kale with surprise. "You should not be here," the dragon growled. Kale shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." The alien ship turned its beam toward Kale. He barely dodged it, feeling the heat brush past him. He needed a plan. Fast. He saw that the ship had vents on its underside, places where the engine lights flickered. If he could throw an energy net into one, it might slow the ship down or even disrupt its power. He climbed higher, fighting the wind, holding the glowing net tightly in his hand. The ship rotated slowly, preparing to fire again. Kale aimed. His heart pounded. He threw. The net flew through the air, swirling, spinning, falling, then it hit the vent. A burst of sparks shot out. The alien ship jerked violently, losing control. It tilted sideways, its beam shutting off completely. The dragons roared triumphantly as the massive ship crashed into the mountain far away. The remaining alien ships, seeing their largest vessel destroyed, began to retreat. They flew upward, disappearing into the night sky. The dragons circled the cliffs, watching until the last ship vanished among the stars. Kale landed on the ground, exhausted. His arms shook and his breath came in quick gasps. Arvin landed beside him and lowered his head. "You fought with courage," he said. "You thought like a human, but you acted with the heart of a dragon." Kale looked at the damaged cliffs, the wounded dragons, and the smoke rising from the battle. This was only the beginning. If these aliens could attack once, they could attack again. And next time the danger might be greater. As Kale stood among his dragon family, he felt a new purpose forming inside him. He was no longer just the child they saved. He was someone who could protect them. Someone who could defend this world and maybe many others. The threat from beyond had arrived. But Kale was ready to rise. The days after the attack were quiet, but it was not a peaceful quiet. It was a tense silence, like the whole mountain was holding its breath. The dragons moved carefully, checking the sky often. Kale repaired the tools he had used during the battle, sharpening his ideas and studying the fallen drones. He worked from sunrise to sunset, trying to understand why the aliens had come. Arvin watched him with pride and worry. Kale was no longer a child. He had grown strong, smart, and brave. But Arvin knew Kale's path was changing. The sky no longer belonged to only dragons. It now carried signs of a much bigger world. And Kale was part of it. One evening, while Kale studied the remains of a drone, he discovered something strange. A small glowing core sat deep inside it. When he touched it, the core projected a map, a star map showing hundreds of worlds. But one area on the map was dark, marked with a symbol that looked like a warning. The aliens were spreading from that dark region, moving outward like a growing shadow. Kale stared at the map for a long time. He understood what it meant. "This is not the end," he whispered. "They will come again." Arvin stepped behind him, lowering his massive head. "Yes," he said. "And next time they may bring something stronger." Kale looked up at him. "Then we must be ready. Not just here. Everywhere." Arvin's eyes softened with a mix of pride and sadness. "You speak like someone who knows his place is no longer only with us." Kale hesitated, feeling a tightness in his chest. "You are my family," he said. I would never leave you. But you were born for more than this mountain, Arvin replied gently. The stars call to you. And now the galaxy needs you. Kale did not answer right away. He looked at the sky, the same sky he had loved since he was small. He knew Arvin was right. If he stayed hidden here, the aliens would spread across many worlds. They might destroy other families, other homes. Kale could not let that happen. Over the next weeks, the dragons helped Kale prepare. Together they built a ship, half dragon magic, half human design. The younger dragons shaped the metal with careful flames, bending and softening it. The older dragons carved runes into the wings, making the ship lighter and faster. Kale added everything he had learned, crafting controls that reacted quickly and systems that could track the alien energy. The ship looked unlike anything in the galaxy. It was sleek like a human craft but alive with soft blue light that pulsed like a dragon's heartbeat. Kale named it Skyflare. Before Kale left, the dragons gathered on the cliff. Their white scales shone under the moonlight. Kale stood in front of them, wearing armor he built from pieces of fallen drones and scales gifted by the dragons. It was strong, light, and warm with dragon energy. Arvin stepped forward. You are our child, he said quietly. But now you must be the guardian of more than just our world. Kale felt his throat tighten. Will I return? Arvin nodded. You will return. The sky always circles back to where it began. Kale placed his hand on Arvin's great chest. Then I will make sure the sky stays safe. With the dragons watching, Kale stepped into Skyflare. The ship hummed as if greeting him. The moment he touched the controls, he felt them respond like old friends. The runes glowed and the engines warmed. The ship lifted into the air, guided by dragon wind. Kale looked down at the dragons, his family, his home. He wanted to say many things but only one came out. Thank you. Then Skyflare shot upward. The world shrank below him, the sky opened wide, and Kale broke through the clouds into the endless stars. He was no longer just a boy raised by dragons. Now he was a traveler of worlds. The first place he visited was a nearby moon where an old human outpost still flickered weakly with power. When Kale landed, the humans stared in shock. They had never seen a ship like his. They asked where he came from and Kale simply said, a place where dragons still fly. The humans showed him data about the aliens. The attacks were spreading. Worlds were falling. Kale studied everything, using his dragon senses to understand patterns others missed. He realized the aliens were looking for something. Something hidden, something powerful. Kale continued traveling from world to world. On a small blue planet, he helped farmers hide underground while drones searched the land. On a gas giant station, he taught engineers how to track the invisible energy trails the aliens left behind. On a fiery mining world, he helped brave workers escape from a collapsing vault. Everywhere he went, people began whispering about him. They spoke of a guardian who arrived in a glowing ship. A guardian who flew like a dragon and fought like a storm. They did not know his name, but they knew he brought hope. One night, Kale floated alone in deep space, watching the dark region on the star map grow larger. He felt fear inside him, not for himself but for everyone who lived under the stars. The dragons had taught him courage, but courage did not mean he felt no fear. It meant he moved forward anyway. Skyflare detected movement. A cluster of alien ships emerged from the darkness, heading toward a helpless world. Kale did not hesitate. He flew straight toward them. The battle was fierce. The aliens fired beams that cut through asteroids, but Kale moved with dragon-like speed. He twisted, dipped, and spun, using the runes to transform air and light into powerful shields. He struck with energy nets, disabling ships one by one. The aliens fought hard, but Kale fought harder. When the last ship exploded silently in space, the world below was safe. Kale rested in his seat, breathing heavily. He knew this was only one fight among many. But he also knew something else. He was becoming what the dragons believed he could be. A guardian of the galaxy. A protector of every living world. A bridge between humans and dragons. And he would keep fighting until the stars were safe again. The silence of space felt heavy as Orion stood on the edge of the Great Council platform, looking at the leaders of many species gathered around him. He felt the weight of every choice he had made, every risk he had taken, and every moment he stood between life and death for others. But he did not show fear. He stood tall, calm, and ready. The meeting had been called because the galaxies were changing fast. More species were making contact, more borders were opening, and old conflicts were rising again. Some leaders wanted walls. Some wanted weapons. Some wanted power. But Orion wanted only one thing: peace. He remembered the first time he met the Skylords. He had been a scared child, the only survivor of a falling starship. They had saved him, raised him, and taught him their ancient ways. He owed them everything, but he had also learned that every life in the galaxy mattered. It did not matter if they had wings, scales, fur, or skin. Life was life. Hope was hope. Now the council room buzzed with arguments. Sparks of energy crackled in the air as a few leaders shouted at each other. Some blamed the humans for spreading too fast. Others accused the scaled tribes of hiding weapons. A few said the winged clans controlled too many star routes. Orion listened to them all, but inside he felt a slow, growing ache. This chaos was exactly what the enemy from beyond had wanted. They wanted fear. They wanted division. They wanted confusion. A soft voice broke through the noise. It was Liara, the young leader of the winged Ilari. She turned to Orion and said, "You stopped a full invasion with your courage. But peace cannot come from victory alone. You must speak. They will listen to you." Orion hesitated. He had never wanted to be a leader. But he knew the truth. If he stayed silent now, everything he fought for would fall apart. He stepped forward. At first no one noticed. The room was too busy arguing. Then he raised his voice, strong and steady, and the sound traveled through the chamber like a warm wind. "You all want safety," he said. "But safety will not come from fear. It will not come from blaming each other. It will not come from fighting alone. You all know what we faced outside the galaxy. You saw how the enemy moved together like a single mind. They came to destroy us because we are divided. If we keep fighting each other, they will return stronger." The room slowly quieted. Faces turned toward him, scaled, feathered, furred, and human. Orion continued, "I grew up among the Sky Lords. They were not my species, but they raised me as their own. I learned something important from them. A wing alone cannot lift a creature into the sky. But two wings working together can fly. That is how we must live now. Two wings. Many species. One future." A deep hush fell. His words cut through pride, fear, and pain. One of the leaders of the scaled Koresh stepped forward. His voice was low and rough. "You want us to trust old enemies? You want us to forget what they have done?" "No," Orion said softly. "I want us to build something new. No species must lose itself. No one must forget their past. But we can choose to make a better future. If we stand together, we can face anything beyond the stars." Liara spread her wings, showing her support. Then the furry Drin representative stepped forward and placed a hand over his heart. One by one more leaders followed. Even the stubborn metal-skinned Valtari bowed their heads in agreement. But unity was not only words. It needed action. Orion proposed a plan, a new alliance that would protect every species. Shared knowledge, shared travel routes, shared defense systems. A team made of all species trained to face threats from beyond the galaxy. A promise that if one world fell under danger, all others would come to help. Not because of power, not because of fear, but because it was the right thing to do. The proposal spread through the room like light through darkness. The leaders debated, questioned, and argued. But this time they argued with hope instead of anger. They worked together instead of fighting. Hours later, the council reached a decision. They agreed to form the first Galactic Unity Pact. When the final seal was placed on the agreement, a quiet cheer rose from the room. It was small at first, like a spark catching fire. Then it grew into a loud, beautiful chorus of voices, different shapes, different tones, different species, all celebrating one future. Orion stepped back, feeling relief wash over him. He did not feel like a hero. He did not feel like a savior. He felt like someone who had simply done what needed to be done. Liara walked to his side. "You changed the galaxy," she said. He shook his head. "We changed it. All of us." She smiled. "Then let this be the beginning." Outside the great council hall, the stars shone brighter than ever. Ships from many worlds flew through the sky, crossing paths without fear. Children of different species played together in the open platforms. Traders exchanged gifts, not threats. Pilots greeted each other with peace signs instead of warnings. Orion looked into the sky and felt something warm inside his chest. He did not know what challenges would come next, but he knew the galaxy would not face them alone. For the first time in ages, the galaxy was not a cold, empty place. It was alive. It was hopeful. It was united. And unity, he knew, was humanity's greatest gift to the stars.